Okay, so today we're going to talk about angle pairs. We've been talking about angles, and yesterday we talked about the angle addition postulate and we talked about congruent angles, and we're going to go further with that today. A lot of the setup is the same way. You're still going to have two options. The angles are either going to add up to something or they're going to equal each other, and so that's what you're going to watch for. So we'll start with this warm up. On your warm up, remember always label everything as you get to it. So angle 1 is 3x plus 5, so we're going to label that. And angle 2 is 2x minus 3. And then angle ABC, which is this whole big angle here, is 103. So the problem is angle 1 plus angle 2 plus angle 3 is 103. And the problem is that we don't have any measurements for angle 3. But if you notice this little mark right here and this little mark right here, that means that those angles are congruent. They're the same size. And so what we need to do is we need to have all three pieces. And so we've got to come over here and we'll add this 3x plus 5 there so that then we have all three pieces of the angles. So now we can use the angle addition postulate to add these all up. So we would say 3x plus 5 plus 2x minus 3 plus 3x plus 5 equals 103. So you would collect all your like terms on the left side. So we have 3x plus 2x is 5x plus 3x is 8x. Then we have 5 minus 3, which is 2, plus 5, which is 7. We get 8x plus 7 equals 103. Subtract 7 from both sides. You get 8x is equal to 96. And then divide both sides by 8. And you get that x is 12. So that answers this part of the question. Always be sure you go back and answer the question that's being asked of you. The other part is asking for the measure of angle 1. So the measure of angle 1 is right here. It's 3 times x plus 5. So it's 3 times 12 plus 5, which is 36 plus 5, which is 41 degrees. So that's going back to what we did yesterday with the angle addition postulate. Okay, so today's the new information. We're going to learn about some different angle pairs and how they work and how they coordinate together and be able to use those to solve problems. So the first one that we have is complementary angles. So complementary angles are angles that add to 90 degrees. Now, what's important about that is they do not have to be adjacent. Remember that adjacent meant that they're side by side. They share a ray and they share a vertex. So what that might look like is we could have these that are adjacent angles. We'll call it, say, angle 1 and angle 2. And those are complementary, or we can have two separate angles here, angle 1 and angle 2. And say angle 1 on this one is 60 degrees and angle 2 on this one is 30 degrees, then those are complementary. So they can be touching, they can be adjacent, but they don't have to be. Okay, so angle 1 plus angle 2 equals 90 degrees. So this would fall into our angle addition postulate where we know that the two angles add together to be 90 degrees. Okay, then we also have supplementary angles. Supplementary angles are angles that add to 180 degrees. Again, they don't have to be adjacent, so they don't have to be touching. Okay, they might look like this. This is the most common way that we see angle pairs that are supplementary. We'll call that angle 1 and angle 2. So we can say angle 1 plus angle 2 in this case equal 180 degrees. But they could also be not touching at all. They could be non-adjacent. This one might say be 120, and this angle right here might be 60, and those two angles are also supplementary. So supplementary angles are any two angles that add together to be 180. Now, another kind of angle pair that we have is called a linear pair. Now, a linear pair is a supplementary angle that is also an adjacent angle. So, linear pair is a pair of angles that form a straight line. So, they are adjacent and supplementary. Okay, so they have to look like this. They have to be, it's two angles, it's a pair that form a straight line. So in this case, we'll call this angle 1 and angle 2. Angle 1 plus angle 2 is equal to 180 degrees. These have to be adjacent. They have to be side by side. So where supplementary angles you can have either adjacent or non-adjacent, you have to have linear pair be adjacent, and then they form a straight line. And then vertical angles is the last set of angles that's going to be important for us. And they're going to be this linear pair and this vertical angle. Those are extremely important. We're going to use a lot of those. Even when we're not specifically talking about those, we're still going to be using them. So vertical angles are angles formed by two pairs of opposite rays. So remember, we just talked about what an opposite ray is, and an opposite ray forms a straight angle. They are rays that share a common endpoint that go in opposite directions like that. So vertical angles, basically, you would have that ray, those opposite rays, and these opposite rays. You can see how they form an X. They're two straight lines. And so if I number these angles this way, our vertical angles are the ones that are opposite of each other. So what I mean by that is this angle 1 is opposite of this angle 3, and this angle 2 is opposite of this angle 4. Remember, adjacent angles meant that they were side by side, and opposite angles means that they're across from each other. And here's what we know. This is extremely important. Vertical angles are congruent. That means that they're the same size, okay? So then angle 1 is congruent to angle 3, and angle 2 is congruent to angle 4. Now, you want to be really careful with these, and you want to make sure that your lines are straight lines. For instance, if I had a picture that looked like this, and then I had this other little piece coming off down here, and I numbered them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then angle 2 and angle 5 in this case are still vertical because their sides are formed by those straight lines or those opposite rays, but 1 and 4 are not vertical because they're not formed by two straight lines. This one kind of goes off and goes down. And then 1 and 3 are also not vertical. So you want to be careful of that. You want to look for those straight lines that form those X, or vertical angles form those V's, those opposite V's. So let's look what it looks like to use these. Given that angle 1 is a complement, as soon as you see that, I recommend circling it or highlighting it and writing down what that means. Okay, complement means that the angles add to 90 degrees. So if angle 1 is the complement of angle 2, then that means that angle 1 plus angle 2 is equal to 90 degrees. So we're looking for angle 1. So angle 1 plus angle 2, which is 73 degrees, we use substitution, is equal to 90, and then we would solve that equation. So we'd subtract 73 from both sides, and we get that angle 1 is equal to 17 degrees, because 17 and 73 adds to 90. Same thing on this second problem is we need to look for those keywords that tell us what we need, and that supplement right there means it adds to 180 degrees. The more you write down, the less you have to keep in your head, and the more helpful it will be. So we know that angle 3 and angle 4 are supplements of each other, or angle 3 is a supplement of angle 4. It just means it's the angle that's going to make it go to 180. So angle 3 plus angle 4 is equal to 180 degrees. So you were given that angle 3 is 119, so we're going to put 119 in. We're going to substitute that for angle 3, plus angle 4 equals 180. Subtract 119 from both sides, and you get that angle 4 is equal to 61 degrees. So those are your answers for your complement and your supplement. So it's need to remember that complement means that it adds to 90 degrees, and supplement means that it adds to 180 degrees. So another way that I can tell you that angles are complementary or supplementary, one is I can say they are complements or they are supplements, but another way is I can show you in a picture. So in this picture, you look, don't forget, if we give you something in geometry, it's important and it's there for a reason. And so we know that these two angles added together are going to equal 90 degrees because we have this piece that's 2x plus 5. We have this piece that's 3x minus 5, and we know that those two are going to add to 90 degrees. So you would set up your problem 2x plus 5 plus 3x minus 5 equals to 90 degrees. Combine your like terms on the left-hand side. 2x plus 3x is 5x, and then 5 and negative 5 is 0, so 5x equals 90. Or when you divide both sides by 5, you get that x is 18. And since I only asked you to solve for x, you can stop there. If I had asked you for either one of the angles, then you would need to go back and substitute those. So that's another way of seeing complementary angles. This set of angles right here, they are supplementary. We can tell that because they form a straight line. This is called a linear pair. Remember that we have a linear pair as adjacent angles that form a straight line. And so these two form a straight line. They are a linear pair. And linear pair adds up to 180 degrees. So you would take your two angles, x and 3x minus 8, and you would set that equal to 180 because they're supplementary. Combine your like terms. Add 8 to both sides. Come over here. 4x is equal to 188, and x is equal to, divide both sides by 4, and x is equal to 47. And since that's all I asked for, you can stop there. If I wanted, I could go back up and ask for the measurements of these angles. So we've got 90-degree angles here. They're complementary, or they're right, or they're perpendicular, or they're 90 degrees by this little box. So that's one way we can tell you that they're 90 degrees, or we can say they're supplementary, or we can give you a picture where they're a linear pair. This is something that you're going to want to watch for a lot in the types of problems that we're going to be doing. Number 5 says to name all of the linear pairs. There's a lot of vocabulary, so that means you need to remember what a linear pair means. Linear pair means adjacent, and it means supplementary. So you're looking for those angles that form a straight line that add up to 180 degrees. So, and they are linear pairs. And so we want to look. So we can start anywhere. Let's just start here with angle 3. So if I start here with angle 3 forms a linear pair. If you look at this straight line right here, angle 3 forms a linear pair with angle 6. So angle 3 and angle 6 are a linear pair. We just kind of work our way around. Let's finish out with angle 3. We've also got angle 3 matches right here with these two, with both of these angles, angle 1 and angle 2 together, but it's a pair, so we can't name them 3 and 1 and 2. We can't name the three angles, but we can say angle 3, and we can call this by its name with the three letters, and we can call it angle AXC. So that's another set of linear pairs. We've done 3 and 6, we've done 3 and AXC. Now we can do angle AXC, which is this one that we just did. And we can do here with angle 5 or CXE, however you want to name it. So we can do AXC and angle 5. Those two form, see if you cover them up, you can see those two form a linear pair, those two form a linear pair, those two form a linear pair. And then we also have angle 5 and angle 6. We have this angle here and this angle here. If you cover it up, you can see, just make a straight line. If you need to, use an index card or a ruler or your hand and cover them up and see which ones match. So we could do angle 5 and angle 6. Okay, so we can name them with numbers or letters depending on what we need, but we can't say 1 and 2 and 3, or we can't say 1 and 2 and 5. We have to do, it's a pair of 2. Okay, so that's linear pairs. Then we also have vertical angles. So vertical angles, remember those are angles that are formed by opposite rays. So we're looking for those X angles, those angles that look like X's. Remember that linear pairs are supplementary. Vertical angles are congruent. That's going to come in later. We're going to need that. So let's look at this same picture and let's name our vertical angles. So if we look, we've got angle 3, and angle 3 is formed right here. So look at the two. Let me highlight these a little bit so you can see at least the first set. If we look at these two straight lines right here, then this angle is vertical from this angle. So then we would say angle 3 and angle 5 are vertical angles. Then we can also say, if you use those same two lines, you can also say that angle 6 and angle AXC are congruent. So we have, or are vertical angles. So we would say angle AXC and angle 6 are vertical angles. Be careful, you can't use angle 1 and angle 6 or angle 2 and angle 6 because they're not formed by those straight lines or those opposite rays. Okay, so you can't say, you might want to make a note, it's not angle 1 and angle 6 and not angle 2 and angle 6. Okay, you can't use those. Those are not vertical angles because they're not formed by opposite rays. So now let's look at some problems that have to do with this and where we use vertical angles in linear pairs. So right here, if you look at these two angles, you have to decide, do they add up to something or do they equal each other? And because they are vertical angles, we know that they're congruent. So vertical angles are congruent. Make a note to yourself there so that later on when you're like, why did I set those equal to each other? You know why. So we say 3x minus 4 equals 2x plus 10. And then you would solve that equation. So everything's combined on the left and everything's combined on the right. So we would subtract 2x from both sides. And we're left with x minus 4 equals 10. Add 4 to both sides. And x is equal to 14. We can stop there. Now, one of the things that you can realize, though, is that if I had asked for the angles, we could have gone back up here and we could have found this angle, this 3x minus 4 angle. We could find this 2x plus 10 angle. And because now what we know about linear pairs, we could use those numbers to find these other angles. So we would be able to find everything in this picture if I had asked you for those angles. Okay, and number 8, we've got a couple of things going on. We have this right angle right here, which if that is a right angle, here's what I know. I know that this is a right angle. And I know that because those are vertical angles formed by this set of opposite rays and this set of opposite rays. So what that tells me then is that these two, and they're either going to add up to be something or they're going to equal each other. And in this case, these two angles are going to add to be 90 degrees, just like this one up here that we did with number 3. So we have x plus 5x is equal to 90. 5x and x is 6x. So then divide both sides by 6. And you get that x is equal to 15. And you can stop there. Now, one correction, if it's not already made on your notes, is this one, this angle right here that we're fixing to solve for number 9. If it said COE, change that to COD. Okay? Now, here's what you need to do. When we see a picture like this, I'm asking you to find all of these angles. The easiest thing to do is start over here on the picture and work from the picture and then come back and answer these blanks. But you would be able to fill in the whole picture without ever looking at these blanks over here, and that'll make it a whole lot easier. So let's look at the information that we're given and let's mark everything that we know and let's fill in the picture as we go so that we don't have to remember anything. So OA, which is right here, OA bisects BOF. Well, here's BOF. What that tells me is that angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. Now I'm going to need that in a minute. I don't need it yet, but I'm going to use OA bisects BOF. As soon as you see bisects, you need to go and mark what's congruent because bisect means to cut in half or to cut it into 2 equal pieces. Okay, the other thing that I know is I know that COD is 80. Here is COD. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mark it with 80 because then I don't have to remember what did I know, what did I find, and I can find each piece. Now from here, it kind of depends on what you see next. Okay, I can see a lot of things. I can see these angles that form a straight line, but I don't have enough information, and we have all kinds of those. Those 3 angles form a straight line too, and all the angles that form a straight line add up to 180. Now, but what we want to mainly use is let's go from here let's go to how about this pair of opposite rays, which is angle 4 and angle 2. So that tells me that angle 2 is 80. So this is the first thing that I did is I found that that was 80. Then, once I know that that's 80, I've got to look and see what I know next. So what I know next is that angle 1 and angle 2 are congruent. They're the same size, which means that that angle is also 80. So I found that one next. And you don't usually have to number them. I'm just numbering them so that when you go back and you look, what did you do first? Then you can see it when you look at your notes again. So now we need to find something else. We need to see what we know. Well, if you notice, then this opposite rays and this set of opposite rays form that X, which means that angle 1 and angle 5 are vertical, which means angle 5 is also 80, okay, because it's vertical. So now we have to figure out where to go from here, and we have several different directions we can go. But I think I see this one first, that angle 1 and angle 2 and angle 6 form this straight line. Well, we know that straight lines are 180, that straight angles are 180. So that means these 3 angles are going to add to be 180. I know that all of those are 180. Well, I have 80 plus 80, which is 160. And so if I take that 160 and subtract it from 180, then I get 6 would be 20. Okay, let me say again. It was 180, and I subtracted 160 that came from this 80 plus 80. So then that's where that 20 came from. So then that was the fourth thing I found. And you could have done it. There are several different linear pair, or not linear pairs, but there are several angles that form straight lines. You can see there with 1, 2, and 3. Those form a straight line. You can see there with 2, 6, and 5. You can see it with 5 and 4 and 3. So any one of those will work. It doesn't matter. But then what I also know, the last one, is I know that angle 3 and angle 6 are vertical angles. Those vertical angles are so very important. We're going to use them a lot. So if angle 6 is 20, then I know that angle 3 is 20. So that's the fifth thing. So now I'm going to go over here. I've got every angle over in this picture. I've got every angle filled in, which will help me then to find the pieces that I need over here. So angle 1 that I went and found was 80, okay, because it was a vertical angle. Angle 2 was also 80. That was the first one I found. Angle 3 was 20 because those form a straight line. If you look at that one too, they form a straight line and they're vertical. Angle 4 was 80. COD, which is angle 4. That was 80 because that was given. This right here, that's angle 4. Angle 5 is 80 because it's vertical from angle 1. Angle 6 is 20. And then we've got these bigger angles, so we'll look and see. So angle AOC, so AOC is right here, AOC. I want to know how big that whole big angle is, so I'm looking at this right here, that whole big angle, which would be 80 plus 20, which is 100. It was 80 plus 20, which is 100. Then EOC, let's find E. Here's EOC, EOC. That's this angle right here. So you can see that that's 80 plus 80. So that's 160. 80 plus 80 is 160. And then AOD is our last one. So AOD, you see AOD right here, that forms a straight line. That's a straight angle. So that is 180 degrees because it's a straight angle. I think it's helpful to look back and see why we used the numbers that we used. So we've talked about 4 different special kinds of angle pairs today. Complementary, which are angles that add to 90. We talked about supplementary, which are angles that add to 180. Both of those can be adjacent or non-adjacent. Then we talked about the linear pair. That's the pair of angles that form a straight line. They're adjacent, and supplementary, which means they add to 180 degrees. And then vertical angles, and those are angles formed by 2 pairs of opposite rays that and then vertical angles are congruent.